Any good committee chair will make sure that he or she is providing a base of knowledge.
Former State Representative Yvonne Selcer reveals what lawmakers do at the beginning of a new session. This is Democratic Visions. Here's Tim O'Brien.
One of our favorite people, Yvonne Selcer, is joining us now. Yvonne chose not to seek re-election to the Minnesota House of Representatives. Instead, Laurie Pryor, DFL activist and community leader, was elected in her stead and began to serve on January 3, 2017. Yvonne, welcome to Democratic Visions.
Thank you, Tim.
So, House District 48A, North Eden Prairie, South Minnetonka, that's got to be one of the most competitive House districts in the state, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very competitive district. It's been that way for many years. I was delighted when Laurie Pryor won by 800 votes, which is a landslide in our district.
Because you won by 202 and 41 in
and
respective
happy to do it, yeah.
Yvonne, I know that you worked on a lot of bills in the legislature. What area of the legislative menu provided you with the most satisfaction?
Well, Tim, education is my passion. As a former teacher and a former school board member, serving on both the education, policy, and finance committees, I was just proud of the work that I was able to do as far as advancing our students' education.
Well, one thing you did is you repaid the loan that Tim Pawlenty had taken from education, didn't you?
Tim, it was a great honor, yes, to carry House File 1, which paid back the money that was shifted away from our students.
Now, here are the nuts and bolts questions. What do legislators do during this first couple of weeks of a legislative session?
Well, when you are a brand new legislator, you do a lot of staring into headlights. The learning curve is very steep. My predecessor, Maria Rude, once said...
Great person.
Oh, I love Maria. She once said, it's like getting your master's degree in 10 areas at once. And I would agree with that.
From Globe University?
Hopefully not. The first couple of weeks, you are meeting with lobbyists a great deal. You're meeting with constituents. You are going to your committees, and there, a good committee chair, and I always had good committee chairs, spend some time laying the groundwork and educating the committee members.
But you'd already, in other words, you're assigned to the committees before the legislative session starts.
Yes, and it's nice. You get to list, at least when I was in the legislature, you got to put down 9 preferences, ranking them in the order you'd like to serve, and usually get 3 to 5 of those committees.
So, but you say you have to deal with lobbyists. Is that educational, informative? Is that what the purpose is for lobbyists to come in and speak to various proposals that may come before the legislature?
We do. Lobbyists serve a very important role over at the legislature. A good lobbyist does help educate you, and the mark of a good lobbyist is when you ask, and every legislator should ask, what would your opposition say? They give you the straight skivvy on that, and so it really enables you to make an informed decision.
So during these first couple of weeks, did you sort of serve regular hours as opposed to the end of the session when things, I think, go off the clock, so to speak?
You certainly put in a great deal of time at the end of session, but I would say throughout session you're very busy throughout the entire session. You're either in committee, or you are studying the legislation that you will be voting on in committee, or you are meeting with constituents or lobbyists, and a good legislator, especially in the metro area, is always attending evening events that are in your community.
Here's my nuts and bolts question number 2.
Okay.
During your first term, you were fortunate enough to serve in the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, during your second term, you were in the minority. Tell us the difference between night and day.
Night and day. Yes, when you're in the majority, obviously, the way the situation is set up over there, the structure, is that the majority party really has all the power. You have all the committee chairs are from your party. In my case, it would be the Democratic Party. During my first term, you get to set the agenda. You elect the Speaker of the House de facto because most parties vote for their candidate. And so in our case, it was Speaker Paul Thiessen. And the Speaker gets to decide what comes to the House floor. So really, the majority party really gets to set the agenda as far as deciding what bills will be heard both in committee and on the House floor. You also get many more visits from said lobbyists when you're in the majority party, and they come to you and they will ask you to carry legislation. So obviously you still have to study it and agree, to carry the legislation. But I would say that when you're in the minority, you really learn more about the nuts and bolts of writing a law. I spend a great deal of time
Really? That's interesting.
working with citizens and then with our research staff crafting legislation, because lobbyists do not come to you very often when you're in the minority to carry legislation, because bills are much more likely to be heard in committee if you're a member of the majority party.
In other words, lobbyists bring bills written out to the majority party?
They do.
I understand. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
They
And
do.
again, let's drop back for a second to the majority party status. Does that improve your ability to serve on the committees that you'd like to serve on? You get, for one thing, don't you get more members than the minority does on a particular committee?
You do, Tim, but my experience was both times, my major focus, as I mentioned, was education, and both speakers of the House allowed me to serve on education committees.
Is the majority party inclined to know who's in the majority and who's in the minority as they deal with each other?
I would say in the Minnesota House of Representatives, there is a great deal of respect for both the majority and the minority party.
Because they know next time it could be me, right?
That's exactly right, Tim.
When you show up on January 3 or
Yes.
whatever that date is the fact that you're in the majority or in the minority, does that affect your mindset going forward over at the legislature?
Certainly, we all know that when you're in the minority, it is more difficult to get legislation passed. However, I really tried very hard to work across the aisle, and many people over there do. And if you are a straight shooter and you are honest about what you're bringing forward, you are able to get legislation through whether you're in the majority or the minority party. Of course, you will get more bills through if you're in the majority party, but I was very happy to get what I considered to be some significant legislation through when I was in the minority party.
Well, here it is, mid-January, and you're not at the legislature. You've got to feel pretty good about that.
Well, you know, I really enjoyed being a legislator. I certainly loved, my favorite part, which you didn't ask me about, was constituent services. I loved helping the members of our community and meeting with them. So I really and thoroughly enjoyed being a state legislator. It was just time for me to spend more time with my family.
Well, unless you move, you've got a Democrat in 48A and you've got a Democrat state senator, so you're going to have to move out of the district in order to go back to St. Paul.
Do you know, I think I'm very happy living where I am, and I have great representation.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.